Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to another webinar here at Liorans. And actually, it's the first webinar we are doing in English. The previous ones we were doing it in Spanish. So, we are here with Evan. Hello, Evan. How are you doing?
Yeah, hello. Very good, Ricardo. Yeah, good to be here.
Thanks. Thanks for accepting the invitation to participate to this webinar. So, let us know a little bit what we are going to talk about today.
Okay, yeah. So, generally, for today's conversation, it's going to be on generative AI and software engineering. Just more of an exploratory conversation on what's happening so far and where things are heading towards.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, you got your PhD in engineering last year, right? Or 2 years
Yes,
ago?
yeah. No, this year actually. Yeah. So I defended this year, but then I submitted last year. I got accepted to submit last year. Yeah, just the
Yeah.
defense
Okay.
happened this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Let us know a little bit about your background because I know that you have been quoted and your work has been quoted hundreds of times, if I'm not mistaken, in other papers. So let us know a little
Yeah.
bit of your background.
Yeah, so I have more of an academic background, maybe for the past 10 years. Yeah, so I did my bachelor's in Ghana in computer science. Then I went to Russia to do my master's in something more of a mix between computer science and business. So that was IT innovations in business and applied informatics master's. Then I did the PhD program in Russia also. Yeah, focusing on management or what we call control systems in organizational systems. So that was my main focus. Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
You were in Uruguay, right, for more than
yeah,
10 years?
Eurofederal University for 10 years. Yeah, yeah, and
Wow.
I'm in the transition phase now, transition out of academics into industry. So
Cool.
that's where I'm now.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to upload here
Okay,
and let's start.
all right, yeah. So um, as I've already mentioned in today's conversation, it's generally going to be on software engineering and Gen AI, what we call Gen AI. That's we are currently in that age where there's lots of AI everywhere, and now generative AI is actually what is drawing people into the whole AI space. Because, for example, you can take your phone and go online and you see um the things beyond the deep fakes that we used to see back in the days when there was a time when you see deep fakes online of maybe Obama saying something or images being tweaked. But now there are lots of companies these days launching products. I don't know the rate at which companies are launched or products are launched or updates are made, but at every second or every day you're going to see something new, and it's hard to keep up with this new phase sometimes. Yeah, so some of us try to keep up with it, and it's not really that easy, but then we try to keep up with everything happening in every little way. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. I was reading one book and was saying that the book says as long as you keep the fundamentals control, the new updates and new features are gets easier to
Yeah,
process.
yeah. It
Well,
makes
once you
sense
know
though. Yes, it
context.
makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense because you have an understanding of the base. So when there's anything new added on top, even though some terms or some technical things might change a little bit, it shouldn't be so difficult for you to understand it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
catch on with it. Yeah. Okay. So we've just taken a little trip down memory lane, and um, the foundations actually here that brought us to where we are. So it's a good segue into everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we talk about software engineering, before we begin that, there's the whole concept of software engineering emerged in the late 1960s, especially with the recognition of programming languages that became a discipline similar to the traditional engineering. Because some people ask, well, are you there are different types of engineers. We have mechanical engineers, biomedical engineers, chemical engineers. But why is a software engineer that's in the same category as those kind of hard engineering um, groups here. So in the 1960s, researchers and experts had to sort of build this new path where they follow the whole concept of engineering, traditional engineering. There's a systematic process to doing things, and that's when what we know as software engineering was birthed. And key people like Dijkstra, I'm sure if you studied a little bit of math, you might, or even computer science, you might come across this name, Dijkstra's algorithm. And also we have Brooks and one famous person, Don Knuth. If you know Don Knuth, he has a really interesting book that lots of people who studied programming in undergrad might have read. Yeah, and most of these people have actually played a crucial role in shaping what we know today as software engineering. It all started with programming languages, coding, scripting, and all of those things. And today we are where we are. Now, over the years, software engineering has evolved and adapted to changing needs of the industry. Yeah, so we've seen lots of modernized ways of the whole process of software engineering. When you look at the way companies run today, or um, tech firms run today, you can see a little difference in it. There's a business edge to things in comparison to the more technical things. And if you go back in go down memory lane, you could actually just watch some videos from Microsoft back in the day, or Apple, and you see what happened in the past and how they birthed some of the products they birthed. It's quite interesting to see. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and when we talk about software engineering today, this an interesting image that might ring a bell for lots of people. I can't remember exactly when this happened, but then probably it was 2024 or this year. Yeah, there was a video that popped up of some guy from Silicon Valley. Everything happens in that side of the world. Yeah,
Sure.
and uh, he popped up and he said they are bringing out something called Devon, and the whole world started shaking. I don't know if you heard of Devon, the AI.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of PR, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, back
Yeah,
then.
it was at a time when most of the AI programming things were not really existent, and what they promised was so uh, how should I put it? It was actually scary for lots of people. Some people, and eh, at first glance, people thought this is probably just a video that is not real. Everything was faked. Lots of people believed it was real. Some people and then end up coming to the realization that it was just a whole PR stunt. But then you couldn't dismiss the intention behind it, that it was coming. Whatever they were promising was coming. Yeah. There was so many interesting comments. For example, if you look at the screenshot there, you can see so many opinions on the whole thing. Yeah, someone says it was an honor to program with you all. He means that his career is over, something like that. Yeah, and someone says devin in me, dev out. Like, as a dev, my time is out. It's quite interesting. Yeah, and and someone was like, Cognition AI. That's the company that brought out the whole tool. There was a comment that Devin finally is going to replace all software engineers at the company that built it, which is quite an interesting turn of things. Yeah, then later on, some people will say, oh, yeah, it's all fake and all of that. Yeah, so it's quite interesting when it comes to the whole cognition AI thing that came about by Devin. And yeah, it all leads to the conversation we're having today. And I think today Devin is actually a reality, yeah, to a degree. Yeah, we've seen a lot of tools, and we're going to talk about some of them now. Anytime I teach any thing technology related, one of the things I like to look at is Gartner's hype cycle, which is from the company Gartner, the research and advisory firm. Yeah, quite a popular firm in many countries. Yeah. I think it's originally from the United States, yeah. And
Yeah.
the research they do and the advisory they do helps a lot of companies. Even there are comments today on the fact that some of these companies are going to be replaced. The companies that are doing the advisory and all of that, because now we have LLMs, that's AI, that's able to give us the advice we need. So why do we need to hire companies like uh, Accenture and Gartner and all of these people to do? But it's just a that's just a side conversation. Now, one of the interesting things they have is the hype cycle, and it's always good if you're really interested in technology to just take a look at the hype cycle, which is released every year. I just have the one for 2024. Now, they also have hype cycles for different subsections of technology. So, for example, there's hype cycles for things related to web technology, which is one domain on its own. But looking at the AI world, also, we can see that they have a hype cycle, which at first glance, someone might wonder what this is all about. But then the whole idea is just to visualize the patterns of technologies that and how they evolve over time. And it's quite interesting to see different technologies at different sites of this hype cycle. So there, generally, the whole thing is it's a graph, an x-axis versus y-axis thing, where expectations is on the y-axis and then the time is on the x-axis, and it just tells us how this particular technologies are going to be or where they are actually in that cycle. Yeah, and there are different. There are 5 segments of the cycle across the timeline, and we can see that there's first the innovation trigger, which is usually the where technology sparks or breaks through, and at that point you can see where maybe technologies that are gonna be the next big thing. Yeah, I mentioned or I made mention of. So you can highlight some of these technologies on that section of the hype cycle. Then we go to the second section, which is the peak of inflated expectations, and at that point we see there's lots of early publicity on success stories of that technology, and it leads to over enthusiasm and
Yeah.
unrealistic expectations sometimes. Yeah, and that's where the hype thing happens. If we should go back a few years to the hype cycle, we could see technologies like blockchain, or let me say crypto blockchain, at that section, especially during COVID, yeah, or post COVID era. Yeah, we would find that um, technologies like blockchain will be on that peak segment. That is when we talk about the hype cycle for emerging technologies. So there are different hype cycles. There's a hype cycle for emerging technologies, which is a general one. And then we have hype cycles for even e-commerce related technologies, web technologies, AI. So and this is quite interesting because if you're a product manager, or let me say somebody at the executive level of any business, you can use this to visualize where your company needs to maybe invest in next or look into next. So that's one thing that people look at, and it's quite an interesting um, diagram here. So at the point of the hype cycle, the peak of inflated expectation, it's also possible for a technology to be at its peak. There's a lot of hype about it, and we don't hear about it in the next 5 years. Or it is possible for a technology to be at the first stage, and actually for some years it goes into extinction. There's not much conversation about it. We can talk about technologies like quantum technology. We've heard a lot of quantum technology. I think it's beginning to gain some momentum now, even though not so much. And of course, with quantum, we can understand because it's more dependent on the type of hardware and technology that needs to build it. We are not there. We are not there yet where we can have like small research labs in universities building quantum tech here. It's one of those things that um, people don't see the use case for in smaller settings here, but on a large setting here, there's some use cases. But with this whole boom in AI, also people are beginning to look into quantum AI. I think recently I was in a conference here in Romania in one of the universities, and it was actually a workshop on quantum, and it was quite interesting to see the use cases for quantum in AI, generally for the purpose of training AI to make the whole training process faster. So that's one thing that some people are looking at embedding quantum technology into the chips and the processors here. So that's one area So I think quantum is one of the things that you should be looking at soon, because now that we realize that we need faster processors and all of that, it means that should be able to now think of quantum. So that's one thing where people are looking at. Now, to go to the hype cycle. In the third side, there's the trough of disillusionment, where sometimes technologies begin to the reality begins to set in. You realize that that this thing that was hype, people begin to question a lot of things about it, because you can see the limitations of it now. We can tell there are some problems with it somewhere, somehow. So or it's not all that it is, yeah, and there's frustrations. I think crypto is actually in that place at that moment. If we look at the hype cycle for emerging technologies, crypto and blockchain, let me not say crypto, but blockchain in general should be in that area, because people began to question the whole thing, because people type blockchain to crypto, and it's it's a whole different conversation. Then from that place, technologies can make it out of that valley, or die in the valley. Yeah, or maybe they might have some resurgence in some years to come. But when any technology makes it out of that valley of disillusionment, it begins to come to the slope of enlightenment, where people begin to really realize the use cases for it. And you see, okay, I think, wow, we can use this in this area, we can also use it in that area. So that is where people begin to talk about the use cases, and we see companies using it in different settings here. Then finally, we get to the last phase, which is the plateau of productivity, where it becomes something normal in daily use. So you can see, even in this diagram, you see computer vision at the plateau of productivity, which tells us that we've reached a point where computer vision technologies used in the mundane, the everyday activity. For example, we can embed these models into things like security cameras for detection of parking spaces. In a parking space, you can have models that can check if someone is parked well or not parked well in the parking space. Even in agriculture, we see people using these kind of models in determining whether some fruits are ripe or unripe, for plucking them for harvest and all of that. Yeah, we also see these use cases common now. It's common to use computer vision now in lots of areas. I think I worked on a hackathon with students in 2022, where we won the hackathon. Actually, it was a competition between students from like undergrad and master. So I led a team of master students. It was organized by the university, Euro Federal University, and then SAP back then, SAP, and um, this metallurgical company in Russia. And it was quite an interesting experience here. We had to build a solution to be able to count pipes, industrial pipes, like these huge metallic pipes, just to
Nice.
make the work easier for um, the people who count these pipes manually. Because imagine you go to the warehouse, you have to take a piece of chalk, and then count them one by one to make sure that you've counted it well. And write it on a piece of paper, move to the next place, count them. And sometimes you might miss it, especially if you have a warehouse where two people are working. With management, the whole goal is to reduce um, the, the task, and to make some of the repetitive tasks quite easier. So by using some of these tools, that is one of the solutions here. So we decided to work on that, and we used AI, the computer vision particular instance segmentation algorithms. At the time, it was quite difficult, because we had to label all of these, annotate all of these things manually. Now today, you can do it quite easily. It's quite interesting. There are RoboFlow, some easy to use
I was going
computer
to ask you
vision
that, that's
platforms.
very interesting because you had to what build the model by yourself, the
Exactly.
computer
Yeah.
model by
Yeah.
yourself from scratch, right?
Yeah. 2022. So you can imagine, there's been a lot of progress since 2023, 2024. Yeah. If you look back, at the time, it was quite a hectic task, because when it comes to these kind of scenarios, a company just takes pictures and gives you any picture. The pictures might not be that good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sometimes you, of course, in a real business setting, you have to make sure that you give them the demands, your requirements, because you need good input, garbage in, garbage out. Basically, that's what we say.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
so we had to go through that process, and it was quite an interesting task, actually, yeah, and built model that could find out the pipes, because the pipes are all laid down and you can just tag them with an AI model and it counts them. The whole goal is just to count it, and then it goes into the SAP warehouse management system for other
Mm,
purposes. That was quite an interesting experience. But today these things are quite easy to do, and that's why. And I agree with Gartner when I see that computer vision is there at the plateau of productivity now. It's a common thing to use and it's commonplace. So if you look at the graph, you can see lots of different AI sub segments of AI, which are at different stages of this life cycle. And some of them are already getting there, some of them are the hype, and some of them are going to be um, the main talk in a few years to come. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
Yeah. Also, these curves for some reason reminds me the emotional stages of the entrepreneurships. When you
okay.
have
Okay.
a high emotional expectation, you have high
Mm-hmm.
expectations, but then
Okay.
you go down to reality, and then you have some maturity to continue if you
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of similar, right? That there are some
Yeah. Yeah.
expectations, but then you see the data
Yeah.
you have in your company for
Yeah.
an enterprise application, and based
Yeah.
on that, you develop something
Yeah.
realistic.
Yeah. So this this then leads to generative AI, which is the main thing. I'm not going to have a lecture or anything, but just a brief conversation on the core foundational component of everything we see today in all the cool AI stuff we are seeing today. For example, I mean, we have phones today which are embedded with AI capabilities and um, image generation stuff, video generation, which is making marketing work quite um, different here in comparison to days when you had to hire someone to edit videos for you. Now, with just what we call a prompt, you can generate a video and use it as your as your ad for social media, and or even for e-commerce products. Just upload one image you have, and it's able to give you so many variations and all that. We are seeing a lot of conversation around some of these things. Now, then all of these are birthed from generative AI, of course, yeah. And Gen AI, or for short, Gen AI is a subset of AI. And it's generally the whole idea behind it is to create new content. So the generation of new content or new materials, which could be text, images, music, and other types of data, even synthetic data. For example, you want to, in some context, you don't have enough data for an analytics task. You were able to generate synthetic data, fake data. Let me use the word fake data, but then it's close to reality. You give it maybe a small sample size, about 30. You have only 30 rows or observations of data, and you need maybe 1,000 to be able to do something with it. Yeah, it's able to generate that 1,000 for you based on learning from the pattern of 30 data points you have here. So that's one example of generative AI. And it's not just in the area of images and
Yeah,
videos and music here. There's also those use cases. Now, the foundation of Gen AI is also in what we call deep learning, where you have neural networks. And when we say deep learning, it's actually a funny term because somebody will ask, what is deep? What is, when you say deep learning, what really is it all about? Generally, it's just a neural network that has multiple layers, like stack layers. Yeah, because a classic, if I should do a simple AI lesson, we'll have to talk about the foundations of AI and then the initial types of neural network before we what we have today. Yeah. So, but then we have deep neural networks, which are When you say deep, it's just generally a large amount of layers, like multiple layers, like in the not just one layer, but the multiple layers together, coming together, and neurons and all of that, and they all learn to find the optimal value. Yeah, it's kind of like I can, in simple terms, I could say, imagine you are behind a music booth in a studio. Someone's recording a music album. What deep learning does is um, the learning process is where you try to tweak the knobs so that you get the right sound. Imagine you have an orchestra playing music or in a room, and then you want to get the right sound out. So they're finding the balance, yeah, tweaking the knobs on the mixer of the, yeah, that's what I can say deep learning is in layman's terms here, by trying to listen out and understanding the room that you're in also. They find that, okay, this a concert hall or maybe a studio with enclosed room, enclosed space and all that, so you have to tweak the sound so that it sounds well. And also you have to make sure that it sounds listenable, even if it's going to be recorded and played by other people. So the whole idea of tweaking the knobs, because in a mixer board you have so many things: the highs, the lows, the equalizer, all of these things coming together. So that's, in layman's terms, that's deep learning. It might not be the perfect example, but then you get a picture. So when you see these neural networks, the nodes, basically we can say these are our things we are trying to tweak. So we are trying to find the right value for all of these, so that we can predict that something is maybe a cat, a mouse, a dog, or maybe a model that can predict that I am the user of this phone. So for example, you pick an iPhone. I don't use an iPhone, but then I'm more of an Android guy. But then before you start, I think, using an iPhone, in order to use I've forgotten Apple's face ID.
Mhm.
You're supposed to take a picture of yourself, something like that, and that's going to learn your facial features, so that the next time you pick it up, even in a dark room, it's able to detect that you are the one, because it's learned your features. So that is an example of what we call like a deep learning model. Yeah, it's learned your facial features and patterns through your face, and that's how come when someone else puts their face in front, it's not able to open up the phone. Even if we put a picture of you in front of the camera, it's still not able to open up. That's one of the interesting aspects, because I think there are more things it's looking at. Yeah. So now, when we talk about these neural networks, we also have things like generative adversarial neural networks. Now, I'm sorry if you could go, but
Correct.
yeah, the
Yeah, I don't mind.
adversarial, yeah, sorry, the adversarial part is actually a very important word. Adversary, it's like more like an enemy thing. So, in the generative adversarial network, GANs, or we used to call them GANs, GANs. It's comprised of two types of neural networks: the generator and the discriminator. And the whole goal is for them to compete against each other. You are trying to teach an AI, a neural network, to maybe to tell a lie, to say that this is an apple, even though it sees a weapon. That's what's a very good example of generative adversarial networks. And these kind of neural networks were used in, and are still being used actually, in things like past, maybe like cybersecurity related stuff. For example, it could fool a drone that this is not a building, but this is a farm. Yeah, those kind of things. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
quite interesting, a very interesting area. Yeah, I had researchers who were also working in this field. Yeah, some students were interested in this area also, but I
Yeah,
don't really hear much of it.
I remember even we well, actually, when we met 10 years ago,
Hmm.
oh, at some point this topic was already there, right?
Yeah. It was a thing. Yeah, it was now, um, like in its early days, you could say. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And then we have variational autoencoders, which is also a different type of network. Then we come to the transformer models, which are the mother of what we see today. The transformers, it's a different type of neural network architecture, and we get that from, that's where ChatGPT gets its name from, the T inside the transformer model, because it's a different type of neural network, um, and it's really prominent in the natural language processing space. That's the NLP world. Um, it's for example, the whole goal of one of some of these will be to predict the next word. So what ChatGPT does is it's trying to predict the next word. Well, there are some philosophers and computer science philosophers, AI philosophers who disagree. It's not just predicting, but it's thinking. There are lots of conversations around these kind of things that AI can think on its own and all of that. Yeah, because it's not just a transformer model that is working behind the scenes, but then um, it's kind of sentient. That's one of the words we're hearing some few words that it's able to think and make decisions. Yeah, it's a whole topic. I don't really want to go into that space here, but then there are podcasters and there are researchers who talk about these kind of things here. Some people just want to use AI to do business, but there are other people who are debating about these things. Yeah,
Yeah, I think there are some practices that actually they don't have a name yet.
yeah,
So probably there will be a spacey to study this part.
yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
And I think before let me I should go to this slide before I come back. So
Yeah,
the transformer model that I talked about here, it's it came from one of these research papers. Attention is all you need. That was the paper's name, the article's name. Attention is all you need. It was done by some researchers in Google and University of Toronto. It's very interesting paper. And anybody who goes deep into AI research, this is one of the papers they have to read. Yeah, because today it's you cannot start doing AI research if you don't read these papers. Yeah, the godfathers, some of the godfathers of AI, you can have to read their works. You can see even at the bottom of the screen, you can see the number of citations that paper alone has, about 176,000 citations. I mean, people have cited this work, and it was published in 2017. So it's 2017. That's when this whole transformer model was built. Yeah, and AI has been it's like a building block. One thing after the other has brought us to where we are today. It's quite interesting to see and to take note of. Um, one moment. Yeah. So now back to this one. Yeah. So in today's world, there's lots of conversations on AI agents. Um, we hear a lot of people talking about agent, and it's quite interesting because I used to teach a course called Intelligent Agents and Multi-Agent Systems for the master students here, and it's very interesting how the course content is now becoming relevant today because it was one of those things that wasn't really talked about so much unless you're in the robotics world. Yeah,
yeah,
because in that world we can understand, okay, we have maybe in Amazon's warehouses you have robotic arms which are trying to move things or or, or on the floor, the whole space of packing, where things are packed in the warehouse. There are robots that move around, so you need to be able to program these multi agents, that's the individual robots, to be able to not to collide and to be able to do their tasks well by moving things around the place here. Now, when we talk about multi agents, we are talking about um, AI agents that are working behind the scenes and combining multiple things together. For example, for a business, you maybe your email to the chatbot to all of these things are kind of orchestrated in a logical way. That's one of the simplest ways that you could say AI agents are working together now. Yeah, and um, when we talk about AI agents, we are saying systems that are autonomously performing tasks by designing workflows with the tools that are available. So you have to give it some tools and then you connect them together. And the AI agent is able to understand all these tools and connect them together. So if you look at the diagram here, you can see this is from AWS, Amazon's AWS. Yeah, you have an AI agent that's received data from the users, it moves it to one place, takes it to a language model, generates some um, results, data, and then sends an email to the persons. Whilst you are sleeping, you can say, yeah, it's doing these things behind the scenes for you. So they are involved in decision making and problem solving, interacting with external environments and performing actions. So when we um, look at this whole conversation, we begin to see the use of such agents in software engineering, actually in the software engineering space, because there are people who are thinking about the biggest way or the next biggest thing, the best way to make money. Of course, it's business. It's a business world, so I understand you're looking for solutions on how to make money to ease up some difficult tasks, or maybe some problems that don't even exist yet. Yeah, to try to solve those problems. Look, classical AI models were trained on certain context. For example, you have a model that was trained or built for the purpose of modeling, detecting whether, not detecting, but predicting whether somebody deserves a loan or not a loan. Do you don't give them a loan in a bank? We have these credit modeling systems. We also have recommendation systems in e-commerce. But then, when we want to now build a whole system that has so many models working together, then you have to use what we call like design thinking or system thinking to be able to understand each individual aspect of the whole business process. And when we say business process, we don't just mean the aspect of business, because business processes could actually be in a hospital, from the time you receive a patient to the time the patient leaves the hospital. There are so many steps involved. So we in business informatics, when we use business process, it's not just related to like buying and selling or supply chain, all of that. Yeah, it has to do with so many aspects. I'm sure you're aware of that. Yeah. So we try to use the lens of systems thinking to be able to build, break down the components of any system, and then see where we can fit our AI into, and begin to make the connect the dots. It's quite interesting. I think if you read the book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, really popular
Yeah.
book actually in the AI. There's system one, system two. That's system that can think fast, they're intuitive and emotional, and then we have system two, which system that can deliberate and they are more logical. So the whole goal in when it comes to AI agents, actually building system that can do both of them, that can think fast and also think slow at the same time, not just um, make decisions on the go, but also look, measure the cost. If this is going to weigh, if this action is going to be beneficial, or this path, let me use the technical, if this path is going to be a beneficial path, rather than taking path A or path B, choosing, because you have to look at the margins, or you're going to get, or the opportunity or the utility of taking a certain path. So that's what we also think about when they are building these AI agents. They look at some of these things. Some of these are the theories that back AI agents, the whole idea of system one and system two. Yeah. And AI agents today, yeah, in software engineering, yeah. So when we in recent times, you would see, if you go on X, you would see lots of comments and lots of conversation discourse around AI agent, generative AI. The There are people who are, the doomsday people are talking about it. The researchers are also talking about it. The people who are in the middle are also talking about it. Yeah, everybody has something to
Yeah.
say. Yeah, the experts. I think if you read comments by, for example, Francois Cholet, who is a really popular researcher and expert in AI, he's the one who built the Keras library, which is Keras TensorFlow. If you know a bit about deep learning, one of these libraries. Yeah, he's one of the brains, the main brain behind it. Here. Yeah, mentioned the fact that Gen AI is actually a pretty interesting, incredible technology. Um, there's use for it and all that, but then also um, there are comments on the fact that, well, it means that we are in the world of we have now reached where AGI is. That's that's artificial general intelligence, where we have AI that, not just AI that can do specific tasks, but AI that understands everything. Um, people are projecting for him. He feels that people are projecting their delusional visions of
Yeah,
AGI. Yeah, yeah. There's it's quite interesting. Yeah, and you
yeah,
could
yeah.
read.
So
Yeah,
there's a lot of noise, right?
yeah,
In
exactly,
a lot of noise with people with a lot of reach, which
exactly.
that's for me
Yeah.
that's very impressive because I've seen, well, profiles with a lot of engagement and followers,
Hmm.
and most of the times I see information with mixed concepts,
Yeah.
and with what I was telling you at the beginning, like without the fundamentals. So with
Hmm.
these misconcepts, people, they just, you get
Yeah.
overwhelmed
Yeah.
because they're not actually telling exactly what is this about. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of noise. So
Yeah.
yeah, need to be very careful whom to read, right, and whom
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
choose
Yeah.
listen
It's
in
it's
the
hard.
the
Yeah.
outfits.
It's
Yeah,
hard to. It's sometimes it's hard to know who to listen to. Yeah. And
yeah,
yeah, some people talking about the fact that, for example, great programmers of the future will be part who in part have to be artists, because you have to change your career, because looking at the way some of these AI are able to generate really impressive output, it seems maybe some jobs are not needed. You have to tend to art. And well, personally, I think I have an opinion that it's going to be interesting. Of course, with humanity, we've always been able to invent ourselves. Yeah. So if you look at the industrial revolution, we can see some jobs faded out, and today we have different types of jobs. In the past, we had people who were secretaries who their job was to use a typewriter.
yeah,
If you know about the typewriter, the one you have to put the paper in and then type. Yeah, people had to go to typing school. Yeah, I don't remember the last time I had people having certificates in typing. Yeah, because it was a requirement to be a secretary back in the day. But now we have AI that just joins a meeting and then takes the whole notes, listens to everybody's notes. Even if I'm not around, I have an AI that sometimes joins the meetings and gives me feedback on what everybody said. That's quite interesting. So we are in an interesting time here, and there's lots of conversations. People also say it's going to boost productivity by a large percentage here. So we are watching to see. Yeah, and according to research by McKinsey, we can see they've also projected the potential growth of AI in productivity, because I think now people are looking at the conversation of productivity. Productivity is one of the main things. It's not the fun part came where you could develop the interesting um, generate interesting videos, pictures. And now, if you go on X, everybody's asking Grok, dude, Grok, is this true? Is this true? For example, fact checking everything. It's an interesting thing today. We see people depend on AI to fact check for them, because back then you could say something and uh, it might not be true, but now anybody posts something, people have to fact check it, and AI is doing that for them. And so the productivity aspect is very important to lots of people. Aside from aside the relevance in um, like maybe other spheres like business, there's also the fact that it's necessary in healthcare and um, government related things. But of course, those areas are a bit for them. They'll have to take their time before they actually go ahead with it, because there are some things you cannot just jump into. You have to make sure
yeah,
it's it's common, like everyday use before. Yeah. And according to McKinsey, they said Gen AI could transform software engineering in the following aspect: that's inception and planning of products or projects, and the system design aspect, the coding aspect, and also the testing aspect. And if from the graph, they've seen that there's been a jump in productivity by a certain margin, of course. Um, and in certain areas here, they've seen a jump in it, which is it makes sense, because if you use AI today in your work, you can understand why. We can see some of the benefits. Yeah, and actually, that report was published 2 years ago, And from one of their diagram, their analysis, they also saw they use, like, for example, that image has to do with using Gen AI in just a few functions, which could drive most of technology's impact across potential corporate use cases. So it had to do with the impact in certain areas, which areas were impacted the most. And we could see software engineering at the very, very top, impact in billions of dollars on the y-axis, and impact in the functional spend. Yeah, percentage of functional spend. So we could see there's a lot of money going into the software engineering side of things. Now we can see that lots of tools, lots of platforms available. And if anybody's interested, you could actually read Stanford, the Human Centered AI Institute report, the 2025 AI Index report. If you follow that Stanford institute, you could see they have really interesting content available on that. Now this is just a Gen AI image I made, yeah, with it's it just gives us an idea of where we are today, kind of outcomes we're able to get here. I made this with Gen AI. Um, red, uh, it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's just like a interesting image. Yeah. Now, so when we talk about Gen AI and software engineering today, we know we all have the software development life cycle, the phases one has to go through in software, building software. So from the planning side to the deployment side to the feedback side of things to making correction. Now we have AI doing some of the business for us. There's been a huge demand in that lots of people working in corporate jobs now depending on some of these tools. Yeah. And there are conversations on whether it is actually necessary, on the impact of it, actually, whether the impact of some of the dependence of it is actually good or not so good. Yeah, so that's another thing altogether. But then we have co-pilots, we have all these tab 9. There were some that existed that were not really what they are today. Yeah, they've actually evolved into really wild products.
Which one are you using, by the way, for coding?
Personally, okay, so
Uh-huh.
I try not to depend on it so much, but then I would say I think it's ChatGPT. I don't use the paid version though. Interestingly, yeah, I use the free version. Yeah, and I one of the interesting things about this is, if you understand, because I understand programming, uh,
Yeah.
let me
Yeah.
say algorithms and all of that. I have a foundation in that. It's not really difficult for me to ask the right questions or the right prompts and to get the kind of results I want. And when if it generates a bunch of code and I get stuck somewhere, I know how to connect the dots. Yeah, I think I've tried other ones which I'll mention, and they were quite interesting. I've used DeepSeek before also for some UI. I think I needed to build an UI, and it really gave some really nice UI the code for the interface. I was really, really impressed with the code for the interface. So I think I used ChatGPT to generate something, and I needed to design the really interesting UI. So I gave it to DeepSeek, and it gave me really clean user interface. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
working on something.
that's the
Yeah,
interesting part. When you already know the outcome you are
exactly.
expecting, then the model becomes kind of a commodity, right?
Yeah,
At some
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, some people say, oh well, it looks like uh, it's the next big thing, so let's all use it. But then some people struggle to use it because you need to have an understanding of maybe building algorithms or data structures to know what you are using, what results should be expected here. So, for example, why should we use this method instead of using another method? So you ask it, you write a prompt. We need to build this solution and put in place these contexts. That, okay, remember that we have these constraints and this is the target audience. So can you build this for us? And it's able to give that. So the right prompt is always going to give you the right results. So,
Mm.
and coming to that, there's also prompt engineering, which is also, I think there was a time prompt engineering became a job. I saw some jobs on LinkedIn. They were hiring for prompt engineers. I was like, what? That was really really interesting for me. Prompt engineering was it's actually a job that people are hiring, yeah, because it's kind of, I understand why, because it's a skill also. Someone who's able to ask the right questions, yeah, and get the right results, yeah. And some people don't like the word prompt engineering; they rather want to call it context engineering. If you know, the CEO of Shopify made a post on X just last, I think, month ago, yeah. I really like the term context engineering over prompt engineering. It describes the core skill, yeah, the art of providing the context and getting like the results. So that's what he. And then Andre Kaprati, if you know Andre Kaprati, really popular AI guy. Formerly, I think he's worked with Tesla before, yeah. So formerly with Tesla, one of the Tesla's AI guys, yeah, and also one of the founders of the OpenAI team, yeah, the founding members of OpenAI. Yeah. He's helped in neural networks history. If you read the history of the neural network, the modern neural networks we have, you'd see he's played a huge role in some of these AI, and some of these people have a lot to say, a lot, because they have the expertise here. So he
Yeah.
also, yeah, agreed with the term that, yeah, he prefers the word context engineering to prompt engineering. Yeah, he had a whole write up on that. Yeah, and also some people, because some people have the term like lazy prompting, prompt engineering. Yeah, just write anything and it gives you the results. Yeah, but when you're able to know how to prompt, you should be able to get the right results. So that's one interesting thing. Yeah, and research experiments actually on AI for writing better code. That's one of the interesting things. I came across an article which I wanted to share when it comes to software engineering and um, code writing. I'm sorry, software engineering and generative AI. So there was a research conducted by a group of, I think just two researchers from Austria, yeah, University St. Pölten University, where they wanted to understand if ChatGPT helped novice programmers write better code, and they use static code analysis to compare this. So they had a control group of no ChatGPT and then a treatment group of students who use ChatGPT, a group of students, and they but first of all, before you do such a research, they have to make sure the students are on a level ground. And these students had, um, they're undergraduate students, so part-time undergraduate student, bachelors. They had done 5 weeks of, at least 5 weeks of Python
Hmm.
programming course, but then they had no prior experience to Java because the task was going to be done in Java. So
Okay.
they had to see if AI helps you to make to be a better programmer because you're a novice. You have not so much experience here. Imagine you've been taught the foundations of programming, and then you've been given you've learned Python maybe because you back in the day when I did computer science in my bachelor's, we did C as our foundations of coding. So that was, I have a foundation in C plus plus. I still am able to code in C plus plus and even C because I didn't learn C, but because I knew C plus plus, the moment I looked at C and tried to pick it up, it wasn't so difficult for me, and that's what makes um, programmers that's people with a programming background different from someone who goes to a boot camp to study programming here because you've learned algorithms, data structures, all that. Yeah, of course boot camps are really essential also. I'm not downplaying the parts nor the role boot camps play, but then there's a difference sometimes in the structured way, the structure you get from university and then going through that whole process also. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's up to you and what you make out of it. So yeah, that's also another aspect. Yeah. So from this research, the students had no prior experience with Java, but they were expected to attend lectures, go to do assignments. Everybody did assignments, everything. Yeah, and then they now give them some tasks. And some all the students like that use ChatGPT, they use the free version, so not the paid, the subscription version. And codes were submitted, but then one thing they had to do was that there was a task, general task given, but students had to make sure that they submit the task, and the tasks were checked against Oracle's code conventions for Java. So there was a set of checklists. Yeah. So if you see on
Mhm.
the diagram, you can see on the table, there's a table there with the checks that were run through. There was a tool that was used to check all of this. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you look at the graph, you can see the difference here. Of course, using the AI was gonna, yeah, we can see the difference in the, like, how it impacted programming, like with and without ChatGPT. Yeah, you can see the number of violations were higher for people who didn't use ChatGPT. Yeah, because they violated a lot more of the errors here in comparison to people who use ChatGPT. Yeah, so that's a simple, interesting research which shows where programming is going to be. And but now at the undergrad level, imagine depending building your foundations on things like this AI for programming. It's going to be scary in the future, because I don't know how it's going to be for the next batch of programmers who have exposure to this already. AI from the get-go, they depend on this to do the assignments and everything. Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting because this one, okay, for example, in the control group, well, actually both groups they had this programming logic.
yes,
So, that's kind of the requirement
yeah,
to be able to speed up with the same quality.
yeah.
But then comes up the question of, is that going to be feasible, if you don't have this programming logic since the beginning? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very very good question, right? How how
Yeah.
how how people are going to absorb
Yeah.
these principles at the beginning. I mean, if it's
Exactly.
possible for the human being to adapt and learn faster
Yeah.
or not, yeah, actually, it's a open question.
Yeah. 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 So when we talk about the use cases today, we can see it's optimizing the whole CI/CD process. That's continuous integration, continuous delivery. Yeah. So we can see the planning and designing aspects. That's when you need to build. To now, we just go to any of these AIs. We type, I want to do this. Give it the right prompt. It's going to give you the steps involved, the strategy you need to take. And also you can decide to now build timelines, a Gantt chart, and allocate your resources. It's you are technically reducing the thinking time, the brainstorming time. Yeah, because you have given these LLMs everything you need to know. It needs to know, and then it gives you some information, and then you can now go to your drawing board and start allocating tasks and um, start with the whole process of development. Code generation models the developers are using, image generation for generating images because people don't want to break copyright laws, for example, which is it's an interesting plus because you'd have to go to these websites and download images, but then it's not royalty free, all that. You might not get the exact type of images you want for a particular setting for maybe a product or a website you are building or an app here. But now, just with the prompt, it's able to make some adjustments, and then you have what you want. And we also have code maintenance and code improvement, code performance improvement. For example, refactoring and redundancy management. You're able to take care of the unnecessary stuff, maybe parts of the code that are going to make it to run slow, flash faster. Yeah, because it might be running slow, but then in order to improve certain aspects. So probably it was written by hand, but then there are aspects that you might need help with AI to improve upon, and it's quite interesting. Um, Transitioning from maybe one framework to another. Imagine you've built a whole framework on Django, and then you decide that we want to now work in, we want to build a whole, maybe your whole app's entire framework on React or something like that. How do you roll over from that to this? Yeah, it's interesting question. So, and there's generative AI that's going to help you in doing that these days. Not there yet fully, but then people who understand what they need are able to do it. It might take long, some time to work on that, but then it's reducing the time to think. I think I saw a post online where someone said, if you are spending hours writing code today, then you are wasting your time, something like that, because you cannot. If you're a developer and you know how to use these tools, you should be spending less time in building some of these products. Yeah,
Uh, Actually, about the transitioning, well, the rollover, one
yeah,
of our clients, they had, well, we were using one out of the box agent that they produced code in React,
okay,
and we just kind of train it to produce the code in React, and they are getting what they need. But at some point, they need to convert this to Angular for
mm,
other
okay,
instances. So there should be, a decision, how they're going to be able to scale it.
yeah,
If, converting it, keep using what they're using, and then add an additional solution to convert, or, thinking a workaround process. But yeah, what you just said. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
yeah, yeah, and reducing the cost of coding, also software testing actually, some automating the whole testing process, eliminating flaky tests, because of course, no, I mean with humans, the beauty of humanity is that you're able to, there's some little errors in some of the things we do. It makes us human. Yeah. So imagine a tester writing a set of tests to run. Some of them um, might not be so relevant, but then it feels like, oh, let me write a test script to make sure that we don't get an error when we do this and that. Yeah. Imagine having AI helping you, maybe not doing a test for you, but helping you to write a test strategy or improving the test strategy. uh, so you because you have the experience, you have the expertise, you understand the system, so you give your set of test scripts to the AI, and it's able to say, well, maybe we can improve here, 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 and here. So things like that. The debugging aspect also, yeah. And with all of this, you're able to reduce cost of coding and then focus more on customer requirements. That is the hypothetical thing. As to how true that will be, we don't know yet. But then this is the dream is to be able to focus more on customer requirements. Yeah, because once you spend money on these resources, uh, the AI resource, you want to make sure that you are getting maximum benefit out of it. Yeah. So when it comes to the use cases, breaking them down, the ones I mentioned here, some of them, uh, we are able to augment the process of requirements elicitation. That is generally getting information you need to build a product. Yeah, gathering the needs from the stakeholders. Usually, you'd use um, interviews and observations and all of that. Yeah, but you don't just use that, or you can still use that process and then aggregate all your information into these AI agents or LLMs, and it's able to give you what is needed to give to the developers to start working on, the designers, the front end and the back end, everybody. Um, it's able to have everything they need so that they can build the product here. So it helps to draft the agendas, to generate, and also even when it comes to before doing the research from the customers or the client, you can generate the relevant questions here, because as I said, the beauty of humanity is that we might not really ask the right questions here or do plan it well. So we have to go back and come back. I think sometimes, if you've done research before for like an academic paper, you'd write out a set of questions for a survey and then you send it out, and then after that you get the data and you realize that when you're doing your analysis, you realize that, oh, I should have asked this question, because now you need some extra data. Yeah, so that's why anyway you have to run a pilot test and all of that with your questionnaire.
Yeah.
But so all of these things, and then a summarization of the documents and reports that you get, as I said, so that the developers can then begin to work on it. Yeah. Then we also have another interesting area, which is self-coding agents. So we have AI agents that are um, These are AI agents that are integrated, like search integration for quick inference, and then agents that can interact with third-party APIs and application um, in the whole process. This actually self-coding agents are or self-coding. Let me see. There were some researchers maybe 20 years ago that were working on things like this, but then it wasn't really popular. But now with the breakthrough of AI, we can see that these things have become more easier because if AI is able to predict the next best word or next best token, then self healing or self coding agents actually can help in that the whole aspect of refactoring code and all of that. So one uh, individual from Ireland, that's in Dublin, Gentic, a company in Ireland, who goal is to build the core integration layer for AI. Gentic, they one of their guys was like, "Yeah, my old job as a software developer is gone." Yeah, basically, because now his role has modified. Because the kind of things that he was doing in the past, he doesn't really need to waste so much time to do that because there's self-coding AI agents that can do some of these things. Yeah, make his work a little bit easier, if I should say. Code generation is um and it's quite modern today. We see that here, but when we look at the past, self-healing code used to refer to or software systems component that can automatically detect, diagnose, and recover from faults or errors without human intervention. And the goal is to maintain system stability, minimize downtime, especially in complex or mission critical environments. So, for example, in fixing configuration errors when it comes to cloud config, because now you most systems depend on the cloud technology. So and if you have a networking experience, networking can be a headache. And imagine configuring multiple platforms to talk to each other so that you can get an output here. It's quite a headache. So when you have these agents, it's able to help with the connection of all of these things together or the orchestration. Yeah. And patching security flaws also in code now. Because, for example, you can write code and realize that um, there are some mistakes along the way. So you want to um, uh, you might not know, but then the self-coding agents should be able to detect some of these things and realize that, well, instead of using this kind of code, for example, you're going to get SQL injection. Rather keep your code in. Rather keep maybe your use this kind of like security or configuration or something like that. Yeah. So we have all those things. And we have self-healing agents. Actually, this was a video, but unfortunately we cannot see it. It's just a short video. No, okay, yeah, there was a short video on it here, but it's also an interesting self-healing agent here that
Mhm.
was built quite recently, and there's a research that backed it. I think backed by some research, they built this self-healing agent that was going to work in the browser as a I don't know how you call it, like these packages that work in the browser, yeah, to be able to help when it comes to proxy related things, yeah, and missing HTML elements and all of that, yeah. So inject missing libraries in the page. So, for example, when you load a page that requires something and it doesn't exist, it's able to load those libraries so that, yeah, everything runs smoothly. Yeah,
Hmm.
things like that, yeah. Um, Now, some of the game changers, it's probably a question. Are these the game changers in software engineering? I'm sure you've heard of Cursor, one of the popular ones here today. I've used it before. It's the vibe coding people like it a lot here. I've actually I don't know if I can say so much on it, but then I've used it. I tried to build a project on it, but I think I ran out of the free usage. Yeah, yeah. So I don't have it again. Yeah, I just had to test it to see how it all works. Yeah, and it was quite interesting. It's mind blowing because if you had used any of these AIs like ChatGPT to generate code for you, and then all of a sudden You have an IDE
Hmm.
a whole interface that can help you to program, and you have a small chat box at the corner where you can write a prompt and it makes corrections, and it even shows all of that. It's just mind blowing. Yeah, it's really mind blowing. Honestly, the cursor is mind blowing. Yeah, I don't know if you've used it before. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, it saves a lot of time. Also, same with Lovable.
yeah,
I'm using
that's
more
actually the
more for
next. Yeah,
shadowing. Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, no, I'm listening. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're gonna.
yeah, no, I was yeah, was using more that one, which was more for general testing. But then, well, man, there are a lot of solutions in the market that have appeared. Some of them that they focus on a specific area,
Yeah,
let's say
yeah,
UI and UX,
exactly.
and there are some solutions that they are trained, the models that are trained specifically for that. So
Yeah.
I see that the solutions that appear and survive are those who are being more specific in
Mm-hmm.
a topic.
Yeah,
But this global, yeah, for exactly for the picture that you're showing, I've been using it to create dashboards
that's amazing.
and yeah, apps for monitoring.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's a lot of time. Can say that.
yeah, yeah. So lovable as you is one of this, and I saw an ad on social media just I think just this week. It was a lovable advert, like official lovable. I think
Hmm.
one of their ads that just popped up on my timeline, and uh, the caption was "Try lovable today." Yeah, that was the caption, and it was like in an office set in an office mode where somebody was like a guy was complaining at the meeting. Oh, we've spent $3 million on like on this, and then when we could have done it on Lovable in just a few seconds, and then he actually he began to question the relevance of the programmers. He was like, the engineers, what's your use here? Because he realized that we could have done this with Lovable. How did we plan all of this and do all of these? Uh, I'm just adding extra, like do these stand-up meetings and all of this, and then we end up with this product when you could just put it in love, invest in Lovable, and uh, get it done. Then he's like, yeah, we'll just raise money and then it will solve our problems. Then said, yeah, we'll use our Lovable in the future. Then there'll be no need to spend billions in engineering costs. Then it's like, you're fired. You're fired. Yeah, because there's the money that went into that could have been used for a Lovable subscription. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And then there's also V0. I think if you I don't know if you've ever come across this one by Vercel. Yeah, it's a pair programming or pair programmer, let me call it. Yeah, by Vercel, and it lets you describe the ideas in natural language. At the moment, we are all describing our problems in natural language, and then it's able to help us. But I think the cool thing is also you're able to even sketch your idea on paper, take a picture of it, and then upload it. Most of these platforms have that. I think DeepSeek does not have the ability to upload images. I don't know if I'm right here.
You
You
can
can. Okay.
yeah, not sure if to reason over sketches, but you can upload some images and
Okay. All right.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, ChatGPT is able to do that. Yeah, and all of these are able to do that. And now these ones are purposefully built for development. Yeah, so that's why that's their niche, the focus. Yeah, and it has the infrastructure. After you build your idea, it's able to, because it's by Vercel. Now that you've built your idea, we have the platform where you can host your product. So the if you know Vercel, the a lot of developers depend on it, like React developers depend on these Vercel products to be able to host their apps and their products. But now imagine, it's really a good business idea that they really thought it through. Like, okay, we are a platform that provides this service. Well, we can also have this AI thing that's V0. Then people develop their idea because it's quite easy to develop an app or a website. After that, we provide them the hosting of this product. So it's, yeah, they actually thought it through. Yeah, you can say. And then we have also Bolt.new. What I think I took a look at Bolt, not the taxi boat company, but the one from Estonia, but the this boat company. I think there was a funny comment when boat was new, what had was fresh here on the market here. There was some interesting conversations. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Whether it was boat, how come? Yeah, both when both the taxi app said, well, we are not in America, we are in Estonia. Yes, we're a different company, but we'll just ride on the hype and use it. Yeah. So yeah, both also kind of the same as V0. They all work. Um, they all. I think when it comes to these tools, it's usually preference. Now at the moment, preference counts so much, and um, because some of them are doing the same thing. I don't know if you can compare to someone using Mozilla Firefox, someone using Internet Explorer browser, someone using Google Chrome. You can say or search engines. We have Yandex, we have Google, we have DuckDuckGo. So it's your choice, yeah. Or Brave browser instead of these other browsers. So I don't know if I think I see like that. I may not be right, but then that's my observation so far because we are in the early days, so you can say. Yeah, and then I think Windsurf is also another interesting one. This was also an interesting video, yeah, from Windsurf. Yeah, I wish uh, I could play this video because this the image here you see it's actually a video and it shows how windsurf works and yeah, pretty interesting. If you check out their website, you're gonna see more. And there's also same is another interesting one. Yeah, same dot same dot dev more same. I think their website is same dot new. Yeah, so same. It's also an AI powered platform that helps build. All doing the same thing at the moment. So probably it all comes down to preference, pricing, maybe ease of deployment of a product. So I think probably people, from what I read, some people go for V0 because you can host it on Vercel, the platform, the cloud platform. After you ask you generate a prompt, you're able to code your product, deploy, ship it right away. You don't need to um, download the files and maybe now find a place to set it up and host it and all that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then I think cloud, that's from Anthropic, Cloud Code. Oh, Cloud Code, yeah. Pretty interesting one also for bug fixes and testing and all that. Yeah. For them, I don't think they have a
Yeah, I've
free
seen that one.
version. Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
that one, the favorite of many people. This one called because it's kind
Yeah,
of more
I looked at the
accurate.
video. Yeah, I looked at. I've not used it before, actually. Yeah, but I looked at it, and I think I had a friend of mine asking me about it just days ago because he think he works in the corporate environment, and I think they have access to it, so he wanted to test it out. But it's pretty interesting. Yeah, if you take a look at the demo video from Cloud Code, it's amazing how it's able to generate the results it generates for you. Yeah, it's we are living in interesting times, actually, very interesting times. Yeah. Then OpenAI's Codex also an interesting one. I think it's not available for the free. If you have a free user account, here, the free
Hmm.
ChatGPT, you need to have the pro version also, yeah, before you can see this. And this is a bit interesting because um, it has something like it has this kind of GitHub ish feel where you can see um, it basically follows through um, how GitHub works. You can see like code that you've pushed, and then also it can make corrections to certain aspects in the code, and then that's in your repository, yeah, especially when you're working as a team. Yeah. Then one pretty interesting one is also GitHub Scope Pilot. Um, yeah, it's pretty famous also. Microsoft GitHub, yeah, the collaboration. Yeah, especially using it in VS Code. I think I used Tab 9. I didn't mention Tab 9, but then I used that one before. It was a little annoying for me in the beginning because it's trying to imagine you can program, you're trying to code, and it's trying to predict the code for you. It was annoying for me. Sometimes I had to turn it off because I know what I'm trying to do, but it's also trying to override. Yeah, that yeah, I think you should program this. You should write all of this code. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, but I just turned it off and I just decided to to do what I want to do, especially when I'm doing some tasks that I really know what I'm doing. I try to code
Yeah,
it, and then it wants to give me everything, a whole function. Yeah, yeah. And
yeah. I'm
okay.
not sure if with this one get compatible, but with Gemini one, you can just choose. Well, you have the comment, then you choose the comment with the function you want.
Hmm.
Then you just highlight it and then create the function below the
Hmm.
comment.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not sure if this one has the same feature, but it's yeah, well, kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
probably
It
has
saves
that.
a lot
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah, it has that. But I was talking about Tab 9 because that was one of the ones that I used in just integrated it into VS Code. I think
Hmm.
with Copilot you can do that. Yeah, integrate it in VS Code, and yeah, it works well. And according to them, they say 75%. There's a 75% higher satisfaction with their jobs. Um, when it comes to you doing some using some of this shipping code is quite more convenient and faster as before. Then there's also the whole workflow, front end developers here. Imagine going into Figma, drawing or designing your platform, and then pushing your Figma product into Bolt. I think because Bolt has an integration with Figma, or Figma has an integration with Bolt. So you design it, and then it's able to generate the code for you, the code base. Yeah, because we have a lot of really good designers, but the problem is that the developers are not able to get what the designers want always. Yeah, I've experienced that before. The designer gives a nice UI, it looks so nice, but then it's so difficult to get. You have to make some compromises on performance. Yeah, when it comes to the design. Yeah, but I think now with these things, probably is gonna be interesting to see. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So if you look at the workflow here, you can see you pass your design from Figma into Bolt, then you generate your code, and then you can now write your prompt to have the back end to connect the whole dots together. Yeah, to connect the business logic together. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, really interesting stuff. Yeah, and when it comes to research, also there's research in benchmarks, especially benchmarking is quite popular today because everybody wants to know which is the best to use, which AI models is the best are the best, because behind the scenes there are so many AI models that are there, so many. Microsoft has theirs, Gemini from Google, the work behind the scene, Claude, all of these LLM platforms, and you're able to select the the AI model you actually want to work with. With some of them, you're able to select, okay, I want to work with ChatGPT this version, or a GPT this version, or maybe Claude this version, or Gemini this particular version, or even Qwen QWEN version. Yeah. So, um, yeah, and for code review also, we have AI doing a lot of interesting business there. Unfortunately, this is a video, but it doesn't show. Yeah, so the code review aspect, apart from testing, the code review aspect is also there. And I talked about testing, so I'm not going to go so much into it. But now you can prompt your test cases with NLP, and even with the whole product management aspect, we have tools like Linear that are able to help with collaborating on projects together and assigning them to issues and all that. Yeah. So you have AI agents um, together with teams working, helping with the whole process of product development. And I talked about
It
leaderboards.
was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
The last one was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Linear.
have
Yeah.
you tested?
No, I haven't tested it yet. Yeah, I took a look at it. I needed some data for my PhD research actually. So that's how
Mhm.
come I came across Linear. Yeah, I need at the
Okay.
time it wasn't really what it is today with the AI agents and stuff like that. I needed some data. I think I tried to write to them because I needed data from developers on like code that they've pushed and then turnaround time and all of those things here. So that's how come I knew about Linear. Yeah.
Cool.
It's currently in closed beta. So I think that's why, because the AI aspect, it's the agent aspect is still in beta. So close to a few group of people. Yeah, I saw this interesting thing, and someone asked, "So, what leaderboard do you trust for ranking LLMs in coding tasks?" And someone says, "My 2017 laptop. If the LLM can run on my 2017 laptop, then fine, it's good." Yeah, it's actually interesting, yeah, because yeah, we act once the laptop is because the old laptops don't have the same firmware and technology that runs today. So some people believe that, well, in order for it to be good, it has to work on a system that is actually slow or lags a bit. And I kind of agree with that also, because not everybody has the same thing, same system. So there's the whole rat race for uh, LLM benchmarks and who is at the top, which one is the best at the moment. Yeah, there are leaderboards you can check when you go to Hugging Face, the website Hugging Face. You can just search for some of these leaderboards and see who is leading the charts. Yeah, and food for thought. Bad data will always give you bad data in, bad data out here. So whatever data the internet has been fed with, or the generative AI models have been fed with from the internet, we're gonna get the results we get today. That's why some people believe that these models don't think. Yeah, they're just giving us what they've seen online. Yeah, they've learned some patterns on how to produce data. That's how come they can hallucinate and all of that. Yeah, this quite one interesting curve I wanted us to look at. It was a debate. It was an article I saw online. Yeah, and there's so much debate on the career aspect when it comes to software engineers that uh, the author has a theory about a certain divide that's written by Sergey popular article that has made its way around, and you can try and find this actually this LLM curve of impact on software engineers. There's so much debate on the usefulness of LLMs. Of course, there's productivity uh, talks. At the same time, there's people don't see what the fuss is about, like the fuss about here. And if you see this great divide, according to them, they claim that junior developers are in the danger zone because they are going to be the most impacted, and also extra staff here. But at mid and a senior level, people are kind of okay. Yeah, for now, yeah, their jobs are safe. But the junior devs are replaced. Even the data analysts, also people believe that data analysts are going to be replaced because you have LLMs that can just prompt and then gives you the curve based on the data you have. So it's quite something interesting to take a look at here. And of course, you come across things like, "Oh, I quit my job and I built an X million or $1,000 app." Yeah, it's not something you can follow, but then there's one person that did that, and people are building tools so that other people could buy it. I think one of them is Base 44. It's you can put in the same category as Bolt and all of these other products here, because its goal is to develop generate code for a product, maybe an app or a web app here. And Wix, the content management platform, bought it out here. Quite interesting. Just this year, I think he just built it 6 months later or so, and then it got bought out by Wix. But you cannot follow this. Everybody cannot be quitting their jobs here and building these apps and getting that large number of users and all of that. So it's quite interesting. And when we talk about the risks are quite interesting here. We have hallucinations because you have unreliable output. At the moment, we are talking about where we are today here. You cannot really rely on everything. It depends on the prompt you also give. And then confidentiality and security concerns. One interesting thing I came across online was some people pointed out that, have you noticed that if you go to GitHub and just type like ChatGPT API, you are going to find people have shared API keys
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it.
online. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, because they
Let me
just push
see.
the
Yeah,
code. Yeah, just push the code, and then so their API key sitting on GitHub for free. So and people
yeah.
have quietly been using them until it's been made public knowledge. Yeah,
I've
but
seen
these
a
are not
couple of
just the
those. Yeah,
yeah
that's
these are not
crazy.
just the only ones. Yeah, there are also some other security concerns, the leak of and breaches of personal information into the training data by these companies. What if they are taking our personal private data and use like that's at the company level or code because you don't know what you are signing. We don't read the disclaimer out there, the end user license agreement. You just click I agree, and then most times when you're installing these platforms, yeah, lack of code auditing of generated code could also be there, and then long-term lowering of cognitive abilities because now we don't think so much, we just depend on it. And that's one of the sad realities here because you quickly want to just use an LLM to get the results. I see teenagers, this is not software engineers, but I see teenagers that this is their Google actually. ChatGPT is now the Google of a lot of teenagers. Yes, pretty interesting. Yeah. And there's a new, according to Andrew Ang, there's a new breed of Gen AI application engineers. I think you can check out his post online. Pretty interesting. It's a longer write up and for people interested in understanding where things are going to go to the next level, just read Andrew Ng. He's also one of the great people when it comes to deep learning research. He's really contributed a lot. Coursera, the man behind Coursera, actually, the site Coursera. Yeah, he's got lots of deep learning AI videos. He used to teach. Yeah.
I think they yesterday actually they launched a new course about RAG applications.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
you
Andrew
saw it.
Ng.
Yeah, it just published yesterday,
I,
and yeah,
I saw yeah they were gonna launch something on that, but I didn't know the exact date. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So and so at the end of the day, when it comes to software engineering, there's also the aspect of responsible AI policies that companies are trying to look at to make sure um, they protect employees and also they protect users and all that because mm, there are so many broader social impacts that we are yet to know. So the legal aspects are not really understood yet. Because there might be a lot of legal cases in the future where people might actually have to sue companies like Anthropic for the malicious code that it gave them in their app. At the moment, we don't see it here, but it might happen in the future that people depended on ChatGPT or Anthropic, and then it gave some sort of output, and it has some effect or side effect here. So responsible AI researchers also um, now also trying to develop policies to be able to. It's like the safeguard. So you see, there's a two sides of a coin. You have the AI innovation side of things, which is very important. You also have the responsible AI side of the coin. The balance to keep that balance. Yeah. So this is just my little submission when it comes to yeah the whole idea of
awesome.
um, yeah yeah
Yeah, awesome. There was a lot of information and a lot of tools,
yeah.
and well, that's interesting, right? Because I don't have the data to prove it, but I will guess that most people they use a tool or a model based on qualitative criteria rather than quantitative when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to choose a
Yeah,
model. So I
yeah.
don't know if there is out there well, there are, but not a commonly accepted quantitative process to test a tool or a framework and say, okay, this is
Well,
what I'm going to use for my, for my enterprise or for a specific task.
yeah, there are benchmarks, but of course, there are debates on the bench. If you go to Reddit, you read some of the comments of the benchmarks. People don't really agree with some of the benchmarks. They think it's trash and
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah. I see
Yeah.
the benchmark there, but then when you compare the benchmark against the data you have,
Mm-hmm.
then it's another story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen because we've been testing cheaper models
Okay.
that they have a lower benchmark, but
Mm-hmm.
they kind of fit
Yeah.
of what we are building, the
Exactly.
specific app. So
Mm.
yeah, but it was chosen based on qualitative criteria rather than
Yeah.
quantitative at some point.
There's
Then
also some bias inside sometimes because
exactly.
yeah, you want you're expecting to see a certain result. So whoever created that benchmark will indicate the kind of metrics they want because they feel like some models might perform well when it comes to certain metrics. So I'm sure. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
also
yeah, yeah. So yeah, certainly there's a lot of information, and we
yeah
we could keep talking about that.
yeah we could.
But Evan, I really appreciate your time and
Thank you very
everything
much.
that you have shared. I hope in the near future you can join as well and
Absolutely. Yeah.
speak another topic. Yeah,
Yeah, it's been a privilege. Thank you very much.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, bro. So yeah, keep
Yeah.
in touch
All right.
and let's meet in another edition, hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the
Yeah.
invite. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Have a good
Bye.
evening. Bye.